Hi there, Angela Fehr here. There's so much light in my studio right now. I should be closing the blinds so I don't have reflections from my glasses and light and shadow in all kinds of weird places, but I just can't bring myself to do it. Finally, a beautiful spring day. And on days when we're all staying home and self-isolating, it definitely feels a lot easier to do when the sun is shining, and it just lifts the mood. And I cut my hair. That was my big thing today. I've been kind of trimming little curls like here and there for the last couple of days. And then today I was just like, I'm just going to do it. I've got curly hair. No one will be able to tell if it's a little uneven. So I just went and chopped it with one of the ponytail method. You know, you pull it back and chop it. And so that was what I did today. But I also have been spending a little time here in the studio making messes mostly. You can see my space here. Different things on the easel and being works in progress. I'm at a development stage where everything's feeling very, very raw right now. And it's easy to feel discouraged. And when I start to feel discouraged or feel like I'm in this raw beginner stage again, I like to take some time to look back. And so I wanted to do that with you today and talk a little bit about my journey as a watercolor artist, self-taught for 25 years. And I think there's some content here that's going to inspire you and encourage you and help you to seek direction in your own work. This is one of my early paintings, painted in the first year I was learning watercolor, 25 years ago. And 25 years feels like a long time at the beginning of the 25 years, not quite so long at the end, right? And here's another painting that I did, another one, 25 years old. And just flipping through this, this was an assignment for my first watercolor instructor. She wanted us to paint something white. And so I chose some shoes. That is very much one of my very first watercolor paintings. It might be the second one I ever did. And here's another one. What you're seeing in these paintings is someone who really didn't know what they were doing. You know, I was excited by what was happening on the paper. The cheap quality paper there, but I didn't have a lot of understanding or direction. I was just making paintings and learning skill. And looking at these paintings, especially with the wisdom that I have now, I look at these and I just think, if this girl can learn to paint, anybody can. You know, there's not a lot here that says this person's going to be an amazing artist. They're going to be somebody one day. So looking back at these older paintings really gives me hope. You know, you can take those early days of skill building, they're very technique focused, and at some point things start to feel more natural and you find yourself in the place where you can make art you really, really love. And it's so exciting to see that start to happen. And when you look back, you can see how far you've come. And I love this one. How pretty is that? This is an intuitive floral. I've painted a lot of these, and often they're the very same 3 flower arrangement, but variations of color, slight variations in shape, exploring the paint, right? And I'd probably still be back painting really realistic art. This was one of my first paintings that I felt like I could be an artist. And actually this painting pushed me into going to the art gallery and joining as a member in my community for the very first time. So when I painted this, it was back in 1998, and I really thought that I had a future painting realistic representational subjects. I felt like it was the safe choice. You know, everybody I knew was painting representationally. And painting safe like that, painting to match my photo, painting to match the reality, it gave me the ability to measure my growth. I could look at my painting and see how much it looked like the photo, and I knew whether I was successful or not. But a little part of me wanted more from my work than that. That really got excited when paint started to flow across the paper. And you can even see a little hint of it here. There's just a little bleed of paint coming out, oops, right down at the bottom there. And that little flow of paint was all I allowed myself at that stage. I was afraid to go further. When I started craving change and trying to figure out what my personal style was, I really needed some mentors. Everyone that I knew was painting realistically. everyone except for just a few people in my community who were making stuff that was just really out there. And it was so far from what I thought of as anything that I would be able to do, that I didn't even consider that we had a line of conversation or could connect over art. And so I didn't even look to them. And it took finding mentors actually online that helped me to discover my own personal style and get my own courage so that I could pursue that style. The first artist I found was Linda Kemp. And I just want to show you a little bit of her work here in her book. I don't know which was the first painting that I ever saw by her. I have her book here. And Linda and I have never actually met, but I sure consider her a friend. I've been through this book so many times, looking at her work and studying it. Linda, at the time, was a watercolor artist. She does a lot more acrylic now. And I forgive her for that. We have to follow our muse and do what interests us and have the freedom to do that. And in her work, I saw that freedom. I saw a willingness to suggest rather than spell everything out. And I saw a freedom to paint for the beauty of watercolor. And there's a lot of instruction on negative painting in this book. It's really quite wonderful. And I have a little post-it in with where my favorite painting is, because I always show it to my students. And there it is. These beautiful berries and this beautiful negative painting. She's titled this one Morning Light. Another thing I really liked about Linda's work was that she wasn't painting enormous paintings. A lot of the paintings in the book are 11 or 12 inches square. And that helped me to see that I didn't have to tie value to size. It's really easy to think that a painting is really good if it's enormous. It's worth more. It's more valuable than a small painting. But Linda was painting these beautiful gems in those smaller sizes. And that gave me the freedom to paint in whatever size that I wanted to choose. Looking at Linda's work, I thought to myself, I wish I could paint like that, but not exactly like her. I knew I didn't want to be Linda, but I craved her freedom. I craved her ability to paint to please herself and to define her work on her own terms. And that was really mentorship for me at the time. I didn't need necessarily their actual physical presence or input, but in seeing their work, in reading what they had to say about it, in studying it, I saw a direction for the artist I wanted to be. I was motivated and freed to choose the path that would suit me and my own creative style. It really freed me from painting like the photograph. The other artist that really inspired me and helped me to break free from some of my own preconceived mindset rules was Haines. This is Haines, and if you're following me, you probably know about Haines. Our styles do have some similarities, and our manner of teaching is very similar as well. And actually, she's been a mentor to me, not just in painting, but in teaching. And I'm so thankful that I have gotten to meet her about 4 years ago in a watercolor workshop. But Haines very passionately talks about her love for the medium of watercolor. And even if she weren't to speak of it, we would see it in her work. She loves the color, she loves the flow, and she gives it permission to happen on the paper. In Jean's work, I see so much beautiful trust and a real love and passion for watercolor. Not only does Jean paint to really please herself, but she is thinking about the other people who are going to experience her work, and she trusts them. I see this really beautiful trust in her work that says, I don't have to spell every detail out for you to understand what I'm creating. She paints for her own satisfaction, for the love of the medium. She showcases watercolor in all its beautiful fluid glory, and she leaves a few loose ends in her paintings, and those untied, unfinished sentences in the painting, they really pull you in, actually, because your brain comes and wants to complete the sentence. You see the work and you fill in those blanks, and you get to, which really invites you into the painting. And I think that's such a beautiful thing. We get to make an emotional connection. Now, Jean Haines has written quite a few books, but my very favorite of all of her books is this one, her Atmospheric Watercolors. And this book, it wasn't just the pictures, but the text of the book that really inspired me. She was so passionate about her love for the medium and so empowering in how she speaks to students of watercolor and gives gives them the assurance that you can paint the way you've always dreamed. And I love giving that same kind of assurance to my own students. In these artists' creative freedom, I found the strength to look for my own freedom. Because of their example, I was courageous in pursuing my own inner artist, figuring out who she was and letting her out onto the paper. That was really powerful for me. It was very pivotal in my watercolor journey. And if it hadn't been for them, I don't know how much longer I would have stumbled along trying to paint to please an invisible jury panel instead of painting to please myself. As an instructor, my goal is not to teach people how to paint just like me. I really want the bigger goal of empowering artists, inspiring them to find their own voice and paint work that makes their own hearts sing. Sometimes you just need somebody to give you permission to do that. And in mentors, you find that freedom. A good mentor says to their protege, their artist, I like you for who you are. You're doing just fine. They give you the skills, the power to trust yourself. They help you to find your strength when you can't find it on your own. You know, learning to paint in my own way has been a real process of discovery, and it's one that's going to continue for the rest of my life. I've been painting 25 years, and I get to continually keep stepping into the unknown. I do know that I have enough time to be the artist I was meant to be. And wherever you're at in your watercolor journey, in your creative journey, you have all the time that you're meant to have, all the time you need to become the artist you're meant to be. And reaching for those mentors, finding a community of artists that helps you to be brave, that helps you to be fearless in that pursuit of who you should be and the art you should be making. That is just the best thing an artist community can do for their people. And a healthy creative community will do that. They'll support the diversity of the artists, not just in style, but also in skill level and ability, and in subject matter and interest, and in just even your personality and how that affects your art. Giving artists permission to be who they are is, I think, the best thing as mentors that we can do for other artists. When you find someone who models putting their whole self into their work, being really honest and courageous in showing who they are, that's someone to aspire to follow, to be like. When they model that, that gives us our own courage and strength. And I'm so thankful for the mentors who have helped me to do that. And I'm so privileged to be that kind of mentor for my students. That was something I really wanted to share with you today as I look back and see the role of mentors. It's not something we talk about enough. And so let's send an email to a mentor today and thank them. Thank them for what they've done. And then think about how you talk about your art and what you model through your own creative, passionate pursuit. Let's model that same courageous fearlessness and trust. Thanks so much for watching. If this little pep talk encouraged you, if it resonated with you in some way on your creative journey, I hope you'll leave a like or a comment, and don't forget to subscribe. I'm going to be sharing more of my thoughts on creative mindset alongside my regular watercolor lesson videos here on this channel, and I hope you'll join me for future conversations.